Hey, ladies and gentlemen,
Hello,
it's us. We're here tonight.
we are here.
Yeah, I know, right? You guys, Troy may not make it tonight. He let us know that he has a prior engagement. And Horace is gonna be a little bit late. So right now we gonna keep it rolling though. No monkey stop, no show. We gonna get it, me and Paula. So tonight we're talking about collective grief. It's only so much trauma and grief as a community that we can consume before it starts affecting you and your relationships. It affects your family. And so this is one of those conversations that may seem a little heavy, but not necessarily so. You know what I mean? um because you have to understand that. I mean, let's just go back to, we just gonna go recent. We ain't gonna even go back to civil rights and what folks had to consume then, or even during slavery, where you had to, whole tribes of people had to watch their family members, their loved ones, be enslaved, right? And so we're not going back that far, but let's just go back as far as George Floyd, Freddie Gray, Eric Garner. Let's just recent, within the past decade or so. Let's talk about that. Sandra Bland, Breonna Taylor. There's only so much collective grief and trauma that we can consume, and we consume it on a consistent basis. Whether you watch, the regular news, or you get it from social media, it's almost impossible to avoid, especially on social media. I just saw a video last night where this autistic kid was abused. He was literally ganged up on in New York, up in the New York area. And so I'm just kind of like, every single one of those kids need to be brought up on charges. I don't care if you bad enough to beat up on a kid, literally beat up on an autistic kid, then you bad enough to go to juvie. I don't know what to tell you, because this is not their first rodeo show, and you could tell. Let alone the people video and ain't nobody stopping. But I think that that's the kind of stuff that ends up happening, because if we're consuming constant collective grief and constant trauma and constant abuse against our community, people in our community, it sends several messages, right? I think that, one, it affects our relationships, it affects our families, it affects us as a whole, as a community. But I think it also sends a message to other communities and people that think that it's okay. I mean, y'all see where Ahmaud Arbery, them people talking about the government failed to make a case that said that we hunted this man down because he was black, and da 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 da. We
Wild.
It's the audacity for me. It's
Wild.
I was like, of course they are. Of course they are, because accountability when it hits home. And so I think that, because part of our collective grief is the fact that for so many years there's not been accountability on the part of the abusers, that it's like, okay, how can we continue to keep digesting this and not seeing justice and not seeing anything, and think that it's not going to creep into our homes, because it is. You know what I mean? So it's wild. Yeah, string. Hey, it's a whole show called "It's the Audacity" for me. Yeah. So, Paula, what do you think? What are your chime in? What are your thoughts on just the whole concept of collective grief, and how it's affecting us as far as our community specifically, in particular relationships, whether it's your family, your intimate relationships, it's affecting us in a lot of ways.
Yes. Yeah. So, I'm all about the subconscious mindset, because over 90% of our behavior, our thoughts, our feelings comes from our subconscious mindset.
Mm-hmm.
So, when we're taking in this trauma, it is impacting us subconsciously, especially if you just kind of watch it, don't really have a place to unload about it or have
Right.
someone validate your feelings. You just kind of hold it in and store it. And so in our society, especially now that we get to see everything, you log on to social media, you turn on the news, you could just do a Google search to find out what's going on. We're getting it in at such a high level. So number one, you get desensitized.
Yep.
I mean, how many times have we seen, the next hashtag, and we look and we're like, oh, That's so sad. Or even with, I don't even want to see the video because it's just too much. I can't hold it in, you know? And so you're carrying around all that where you already have the images in your head, you already have the feelings, you already have the thoughts, you have the anger behind it, the resentment. So you're carrying all that around with you day in, day out. So not only is it affecting you as an individual with how you move through the day, but it's affecting you with your relationships. And let's not just talk about our romantic relationships. Let's start with our daily relationships at work. Because let me tell you, I know if you watch the videos with George Floyd, and then you get the fresh news about Sandra Bland, or you know the debates about Trayvon Martin, and then you show up at work the next day, you're already like, they better not.
Right.
We better say this. Nobody better look at me a certain way because you already have those feelings, and that is your trauma. And it's nothing wrong with that because as a human being, you should feel that way. You should feel enraged. You should feel upset. But the reality is, it is going to impact your day. It's going to impact how you feel. I know there was a day, I can't remember who it was because, you know, let's be honest, the list is long, where I had to straight up say, you know what? I can't finish the day today. I just cannot finish the day and I need to care for my emotions.
Right.
So you already have that with your daily relationships in your professional life. Then when it comes to your personal relationships, your romantic relationships, your intimate relationships, like if you already have those feelings and you're dealing with a partner, maybe y'all are having some issues, maybe you already have some trauma from what's going on. Maybe you're dealing with trauma from the past that you're dealing with in that relationship. It's going to spill over because the bottom line, the people who are closest to us are going to catch hell from us when we're not feeling our best. So you're dealing with that. I dealt with a person with trauma today. Yeah. And the thing is, a lot of times we're carrying this trauma. We don't even realize it. You know, you're angry, you know, you're upset, you know, you're feeling a certain way, but you don't even realize it. And then like when you start to get desensitized and it's not impacting you emotionally, it's because your emotions are just overstimulated. And even that lack of emotional response carries over into your relationships where, you know, you might have your partner. I posted this thing recently about how partners make bids, like when they're just trying to get your attention. You may not even notice that they're trying to get your attention, and it's because your emotions are just numb. You're not focused, and so it impacts us on so many different levels. Oh, hola, Horace.
Hey, hola. Hola.
My face changed because I saw El Guapo. I already knew.
Hola, bonita.
So, yeah, you make a good point, and that's the point of the conversation, because again, it starts affecting your relationships, and so I'm gonna dive into the juicy bits early. Let's not act like it ain't affecting your sex life, because like you said, Paul, if you already having issues in your relationship, you constantly consuming trauma, and you just like, this ain't the day, don't try me today, like you already kind of like that at work, and then you take time to come home. It's not like you can just drop it off at the door. Like honestly, let's be real, you ticked off about what's happening, like, you know, oh, it's like you said, we get desensitized to it. So, oh, it's just another Sandra Bland, oh, it's another Breonna Taylor, oh, it's another this, it's another, like the list is long. It's like you can't even fit them on the back of a shirt no more. So you get to the point where you be like, not today, not today, please, not today, white people, not today. Like, can we just be real? Like that's the mindset, is not today. And you can't honestly expect to stop it at the door when you come home, because like you said, it's everywhere. Even if you don't turn the TV on and watch regular news, it's on social media. It's here, is this, is that, is that. And so if you don't think it's going to affect your intimate relationship and your ability to connect with your spouse, with your significant other, whomever that is, you wrong, because it is. Because we said it on this show before, and we've said it millions of times before, sex is more mental than physical. So if you not mentally there, you ain't feeling it, and you just kind of like, okay, and now Horace, don't do that, because we know that men get off on friction. So all y'all need is friction. But I'm just, for the rest of us that really like to really connect, and we're beyond just the friction. I mean, can I just a little quick biology lesson for some of y'all who don't know? Okay, some of y'all who don't know, it's friction. Okay, it's a lot of friction action happening. Okay, beyond the friction. And for those who really like to connect, it's going to affect you because eventually it's just kind of like you just there with a bump on the log. Like if it's somebody you genuinely love and care about, I ain't talking about a jump off. You don't care about a jump off. You know what I mean? But it's somebody that you truly love and care about. You care about their emotions and you care about what they're going through, and you care about it affecting your relationship, not just in the moment, but moving forward. Because again, it's collective. This is collective. This is happening in our community constantly. It ain't showing no signs of slowing down and stopping. So it's not like, okay, we can just not deal with it. You know what I mean? And being desensitized to it is not the answer. We have to have a response in some way. Jeff, see you, you and your sinus infection, sir. Please don't turn up too bad. I don't want to see the Twitter. I'm just going to say I don't want to see. Give your phone to somebody you can trust. But I think that yes, I did man shame, and you were there, so yeah, I did just man shame, but yeah, you got to have that conversation. I mean, I'm just diving right into it because it's right down the periphery, but let's not act like it's not affecting that. It's affecting your sex life, which affects everything. Like, let's be real, that's affecting a lot of different things. But yeah, and then now you just got a bunch of tension in the house.
Yep.
Unnecessarily.
Lots of it.
El Guapo.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I'm here. You know what y'all get when you get me here.
Come on. I done already been called out for man shaming, so it's okay.
Oh, there's nothing I don't agree with what you guys are saying. I just say we, especially in urban communities, you're so bombarded with everyday life.
Right.
Most people don't have time to even figure out what the dynamics of their life is. So some people don't even know the word trauma. It's just for them, it's life. It's the only life they know. So you exposing them to a peaceful life will be chaotic. It's foreign to them. And I think that's the biggest thing. We have accepted a lot of stuff in our community as normal.
Yeah.
We just did a show 2 weeks ago about PTSD. And the girl was like, I didn't know you was in the military. I'm like, no, I grew up in Revere. Like, I've had best friends get their heads like in front of me, shot in the head. I've been, y'all know my early career. So I've seen stuff that I should have never seen.
Yeah.
And there's such a continuous amount of chaos and distraction that I just think we've accepted it. Right. And we don't recognize how much it affects us. And we don't have anyone that's actually out front. We'll listen to all the housewife shows. And there's a good point why we love some of that stuff, because we're so used to drama.
Right.
So you're consumed. You don't even recognize you're tied into that. So we love all these shows that have chaos because it has some relatability or some normalcy for us, which is horrible.
Right.
But I would like to see some of our so-called leaders or the people that people look at speak into it more. I'll give Charlamagne some credit. Charlamagne touches on certain stuff.
Yeah.
Black mental health, this new trend.
Yeah.
Anything. But before then, we didn't have any in-depth conversations about anything in our community other than, civil rights, which I've been fighting for forever. So I think we have to get to a point where you start to listen to people that are solution-based or even have a plan to kind of advance us out of the day-to-day what we've accepted for so long. And I think that's the biggest thing, because for me personally, until I actually left Riviera Beach, I thought Riviera Beach was the most amazing thing, and not knowing, like, I moved to North Georgia, where I don't see a Negro for miles and miles, and it's peaceful, and it's like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
I didn't know life could be peaceful. I didn't know, and it took me a while to adapt.
Right.
So, yeah, I agree with everything you guys said. We just got to have these conversations from bigger platforms, or people share this message.
I think we need to have these conversations on a regular basis, because I don't think it's a one time or one and done. I think that is something that as a community we need to have. But I think that as a community, some people are uncomfortable having this conversation because they don't know what to say, or they feel uncomfortable with their perspective of not knowing what to say. But I don't think that there's a wrong way to approach the conversation. I think that we need to have the conversation to open it up, to make people help our community see that for us, trauma and toxic has become normalized.
Right.
And that's not okay. And being able to reverse that requires a community effort to have conversation, to say, okay, again, like I said in the last episode, we have to control the narrative around our community. And so that means having conversations like this here on our show, and what the Black Super Friends have on their show, and just different things, and being able to have that conversation to say, okay, this is what's impacting our community. How do we start? Because I think that we expect everything to happen on a grand scale, but sometimes you just got to start small in your local community and where you are. And sometimes it means, let me just start within my family. Let's just be real. Let's start within our family and let that kind of spread out and influence the next family, and so on and so forth, because that's how it used to be back in the day anyway. And I think that if we get back to that in some regard, because we do need professional help, and we do need people to advocate for us. And I ain't talking about people who do it because they got a platform and they doing it for the sake of doing it, or for a tax write-off, because we know that's what a lot of these people are doing. But genuinely doing it because they care about our community and they want to see us thrive and do better. Because at the end of the day, it's kind of like what my man, what's the comedian? I think his name is Tony. He said, nobody's coming to save you. Like, nobody is coming to save us. Like, Black people, real talk, nobody's coming to save us. So we have to be the ones to step out there and save our communities. But how do we do that? Well, we start with conversation, but then we got to go beyond just talking and actually doing, and realizing that marching and protesting is okay, but we got to go beyond that too.
Go
ahead, Tootie.
Let me ask you something. Look at you. Everybody love calling me by my old name. Listen.
Gotta keep you in check. It's to humble you, because my mama do it to me too. So
somebody did that today. I was going somewhere. They said, Tootie. Like,
you ain't never gonna escape that, son.
Nah,
not here in Florida. Not home. Not at home.
Let me make a point. So no one wants to be the butt of a joke, right? And I think if we find a way to show ourselves to be somewhat the butt of a lot of jokes, we may change our perspective. Why I say that? We're the number one consumer, right? In the world. And somehow we don't get the respect with, that comes with that buying power. Let me give you, with me doing producing shows as well, I've learned that algorithm, so I can put up this show, right? And we have great content. The algorithm will not give it any love. But you know what does? Fights, drama, comedy skits, cussing. I want people to hear that. The algorithm searches for that in depth. But if you go to China, I forgot the other countries. Thailand is China for sure. Their algorithm is high if you put out stuff that is self-help, educational, do it yourself. So every country is not that. If you go to Asian countries, that algorithm
is very different.
Very different. So it amazes me to know that with our algorithm here in the States, what actually goes viral, and that's the stuff that we need to recognize.
You raised a good point too, because a lot of that has to do with government regulation.
Yeah.
And again, it comes with those who are in authority, who's trying to control the narrative. So again, it's all about who's trying to control the narrative around Black people. String has a great point here. Where is the example that the culture can look to say this is normal relationship community behavior, right? We don't really have that anymore. Like we had it back, but it got burnt out. And folks keep talking about, oh, that was so long ago, but you literally got people still alive that remember Greenwood. Okay, so you can't tell me that Greenwood was a great example, you know what I mean, of a thriving, healthy Black community that was doing its own thing. We was over here minding our own business, and then here we go. And I think that because we don't have that, and I say that because we need to listen to those stories from previous generations. And that's the beauty that I loved about being at Tuskegee, because we could hear those stories, you know, going to Lionel Richie mom's house, or when she's on campus sitting around listening to her talk and tell stories, or, you know, some of the Tuskegee Airmen that will come back and be on campus. You get to sit and listen to those stories and learn from them about what community is, like a Tuskegee in the sticks. And I ain't talking about current Tuskegee that got some of that new stuff. I'm talking about Tuskegee back in the 90s that baby, country Tuskegee, okay? I'm talking about 90s Tuskegee, okay? When it was country, and your closest was you had to go to Auburn to get half a piece of anything decent, or Columbus, Georgia, or Montgomery, or to the A. You had to go somewhere to get like a name brand like Applebee's, anything, right? CC's Pizza, whatever, right? So the current Tuskegee folks got it made. I'm talking about 90s Tuskegee, okay? You want to talk about community? Don't come to Tuskegee with no foolishness. That was healthy community relationship. I can call people right now that I haven't talked to in like 10 years. But if I call them and say, yo, that's family, right? Because we realize everybody done gone, they got their home, but that's still family and that's community. And we created that relationship and it's healthy. I think that what we need to learn, that as we adapt and evolve as people over the years and time, that our methods for maintaining a healthy community has to evolve too. Why? Because everything around us is evolving. Technology is evolving. So how do we leverage it to take it to its furthest good rather than its furthest bad? You know what I mean? Because like you said, the algorithm in the US, they're designed to show us in the worst possible ways just because it's media. Understand the goal of media is to make somebody money. And at the end of the day, what makes these people money? Everything Tootie just said. Drama, making us look bad, cussing, fussing, half booty ball naked, all kinds of crazy stuff. That is entertainment, because at the end of the day, our skin means entertainment. It's all about, you know, blackface coonery back in the day. That is just modern day coonery. How can we get more of that in front of people versus healthy, good content that's going to advance things? That's why we get ghost, you know, you get your content get ghosted or shadow banned and all this other kind of stuff, because like you said, that's not making them no money. This conversation ain't finna make them no money.
None.
I got a question for both of you.
Yeah.
So I applaud both of you. I follow y'all content. You know, I do make sure I do my part. And it's interesting because as simple as a share is, you can beat the algorithm.
Right.
I don't care if I see something, I don't have to know people. I'm like, press, hit share. I might even add stuff to it. You know what I mean? It's the hashtag, all of that stuff. And we don't even do that. So solution based, I'm like, you got to be unified inside of effort. That's what I've kind of been looking for. I met Miss Good last show, and then I went and followed some of her content. And then I took bits from our show because I know my following is pretty big, and I just think we need to do that more as I guess creators and whatnot. You know, and I wanted to ask Miss Good, and I'm coming to you as well. What is the message that you think gets more consistent feedback or is more impactful? Like, I know you guys all do videos, but which one seems to get the most response? Because usually the people that you get, like if I put out a thing about, dating, just something, it'll be amazing what I get feedback from. And then it'll let me know. Then those same people come to my inbox and be like, hey, you know, and want to talk about it. So I want to know which, because you guys do trauma, you guys do therapy. What is the one that you probably get the most feedback on?
Gosh, the stuff I get the most feedback from actually surprises me, because sometimes it's just stuff that I just say in everyday conversation without a thought, versus the stuff that I take the time to think, to craft, that has a bit of education, you know, offers people tips. I don't get that much feedback, but it's really just those amen things. And by that I mean, like, people can say, oh yeah, that's right, That's right. That's so true. And it's usually hitting those pain points of people's pain, and not pain of I'm hurting, how can I heal, but the pain of the frustration that they have with the opposite sex. So for example, and I don't post this, but I'll just use this as an example because I know everyone has seen it. If someone makes a post about, the modern day woman does XYZ, you're going to get a lot of people flooding and talking about that. It's a general statement. There's baseless facts, but it's hitting people's pain points. It's hitting their frustrations where they can respond to it, and they respond with their feelings versus their thoughts and versus logical thoughts. And that's what I get a lot of. And I try to make it like when I do post, there is some reflection that people have. So I don't get a whole lot of engagement. But when I do, it's usually the stuff that I don't have to think about. But it does hit those frustration feelings that make people want to respond.
Yeah. For me, it's the ones that I post that are personal. The more vulnerable I am, the more people feel like they can relate to me. I get a lot. Like Paul, if I sit here and think about, okay, I'm gonna do a theme and I'm gonna post about this for the week and I'm gonna plan and da, I get some engagement. But it's the ones where I'm like raw, just kind of in my feelings, to be honest. Those are the ones that people tend to relate to. And I think that is because they can relate to it and they see themselves in what I'm saying in the post. That makes them, again, relate to it. And then I get comments, and I mostly get comments on Facebook, actually more than I do IG. I get some weird people in my DMs at IG and on Twitter, and I don't even answer. Just as an FYI, I don't answer Twitter DMs because y'all really raunchy and crazy, and I can't do it. But IG, I get the catfish people, and to me, I find it insulting that you think I'm stupid enough to not know that that's not you when 3 of y'all got the same picture in my DMs. Absolutely not. But on Facebook, I appreciate that because now people are actually commenting, and they comment in the comment, not trying to come to the DMs, but they're direct. So I get more response and engagement when I'm vulnerable and sharing more about what I'm going through in my journey, in particular, like this last year when I'm going through a lot of grief. So I don't post based on, oh, you got to post 4 or 5 times a day and this, and this. I used to do that, and it did. You got my followership up, but in the last year, I haven't done that. I haven't followed any of those rules. But when I post, I get hella engagement because it was raw. It was my truth. And I think seeing someone work through grief and loss in real time, like Paula said, it helps people identify with those emotions. So it may not be frustration, but it might be, I'm going through grief and loss too. And wow, this is somebody going through the same thing that I follow. Let me see how she's dealing with it. Right. You know what I mean? And so I think that, to String's point, being that example. So I'm considered a micro influencer. And so I use that. I don't take that lightly. I take it very seriously to try to uplift and share an example, because I realize that there's not a lot out there. I don't just create content for the heck of creating content. I don't do that. I want to do it for the purpose of, I'm all pro Black, and especially Black women. So I'm all about making Black women look good. And if you're ready to come up and you want to come up, so that's who I post for. And so if you see yourself in what I'm going through, I think that's how I get more people to relate to my content. You know what I mean? Go ahead, too.
Yeah. So with that being said, right now, this month I have put up a video, and right now it's probably at 700,000 for that one video, right? So I do get monetized. However, you never know who you're going to reach. That's the good thing about it. If you can get around the algorithm, I have people that have reached out to me from Ghana, have people in Toronto. We have people from all around the world. So the Black Super Friends did very well. But let me give the credit that I always give. Even with me doing music and radio, the person who pushed me to take that leap is Dr. H. So, and listen, I might get teary-eyed. So at this moment, I've had a lot of success, but that shows that during our conversations or even watching you, we did a couple segments.
Yep.
people make a joke that says men don't go to therapy, they create podcasts. Oh, that was beautiful, because I'm like, we goddamn sure is, and that's what we did. But the beauty of it, when I started the podcast, I seen something to my other 3 friends, and it turned out to be therapy. It was live therapy for other men. Yeah. So I was going through a divorce. I was going through a depression. I put my best foot forward. I'm living this extravagant lifestyle. And on that show, that first season, I had a breakdown because I went off on my guys because no one checked on me, because I was there for everybody. I had a depression. One of my guys had a moment where he spoke about never meeting his dad, having the courage to call the man he was told to be his dad, call the man said, "I'm not your dad." Broke. Like, we've had some real moments.
And had some shows.
And you know how many men have came to that? Even if they don't comment, they like, "Bro, I had a moment. Hey, thank y'all for touching on that." And I think that's the power of influence or ministry. And I give you credit for that. So when I say that, when I see your stuff, I share your content, because I have so many women that a lot of them don't want to be out there and respond because they're embarrassed. They're in a place, but they hear what you're saying. And that's why I push you guys to never measure your impact by numbers.
Yeah.
Because people can feel what's real and transparent. And that's something that I've gotten from both of you guys. And I'm thankful, because Dr. H, who's to say what would have transpired? Because over the 3 years, I've grown so much. I'm on
all of the guys on the Black Super Friends have grown from when y'all first started doing the show. And this is speaking to the whole thing about having an example for community. When y'all first started, y'all were kind of all over the place. You know what I mean? Y'all was doing 11 million topics at one time. It was this, like y'all do, but now it's more structured. They was throwing everything in that baby. But I think that, over the time, they've got more structure, more organized. They got shirts, and I'm still ain't got my shirt. They got all kinds of merchandise and stuff. But I love to see it, because for me, I love to see Black men being vulnerable and having those conversations. But the Black Super Friends created a safe space for Black men to have those transparent conversations. And even when Horace isn't on the show, they're like, "Yo, keep our boy Horace in prayer. He's going through a whole lot, when he had, he went through a devastating loss when a relative passed away suddenly. That was, that's real life. And seeing them come together and supporting each other. And then I don't know which one was it whose sister was down there in the riots in the protests in Broward that got shot.
That was Chris' sister.
Chris. So just even having those conversations and having conversations about politics and voting and the transparency about why for many years they didn't vote as Black men. And so having those conversations and creating community, even online, having that safe space where Black men, especially young Black men, these not even old, like this is young Black men, Gen X, having a conversation about their lives and being transparent, and then having women on the show, like they have their following and they have great conversations, and I think that is necessary. So I'm glad I pushed you. I pulled them out. We did a couple episodes. I pulled them out. I was like, you need to do that, because he had a voice, and a lot of his points, I was getting messages. I get texts after this show, y'all. Like seriously, I sent it to the group chat, because people was like, "I want to hear more from Paula. Paula's amazing." I get a text after every show about something we said or somebody on the show or something. So I know that we're making an impact. I don't get caught up so much in the numbers, because I feel like when the time comes, it'll happen. Like I look at my YouTube, because of current shows, people are going back to watching shows from when we first started. Like before we even had a name of the show, it was just the dating podcast. It was just the dating podcast. That's all it was. It was just dating commentary. And people are going back to watching the After Dark shows and just conversations from 2 and 3 years ago. So I think that in time, people catch up and watch, because they want to check you out. They want to see who you are and what you're about. I think that is huge in creating community. And I think you got a great point, Horace. It's not hard to share. Just repost and share. If I find I'm constantly reposting and sharing. Like if I can, I do it. Like Black, especially if it's a powerful episode of Black Super Friends, I'll be like, listen, y'all need to get on this. This is some Black men having a positive conversation, because you don't see that. All you see in mainstream media, and that's included on social media, is a push to make Black men look bad.
Yeah. And men talk. We talk now.
It's about us controlling our narrative. How do we do that? Through these kinds of spaces. And we just have to keep, like you said, sharing each other's stuff until we just dominate. Because then the algorithm has no choice but to respond, because it's constant. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm learning the algorithm now.
Yeah. Community is just so important. It's one of those priceless things.
Yeah.
That can easily be underestimated. Like when it comes to, when I do healing and trauma, like one of the things that I've created when it comes to just my clients, whether they're my paying clients or the people who just want to follow me for free, is that community. Because when you have that community, you have those people who understand your path. I know for me, with what I went through with my divorce and the what I was dealing with, I didn't realize how many people went through some of the things, because I could explain it to someone and they're looking at me like, oh my God, what? And for me, it was normal. But it wasn't until I found those group of people, a lot of women, and then started finding men who could speak about their experience. I'm like, oh my God, you know exactly what I went through.
Yeah.
And just having someone validate that you're not crazy, validate that you're not alone.
Yeah.
And like you all said about being solution-based, saying, here's what I did to help. Right. Here's what helped me. Or just getting someone to just text you randomly, hey, just checking on you, or giving you a call, or sending you something funny where you need it in that moment. Just having that community helps you heal, and healing happens in baby steps. So that community is something we lost touch with. And I think a lot of it was, and there's a lot of factors that broke up our communities. The ability to relocate, of course, separating from your family. If you had that truly dysfunctional family that was full of trauma, you separate from that family, but you don't go and find community. Then it's that whole thing of, I want to be better than how I grew up. I want to be better than my family. So you separate yourself to try to do things differently. Right. And you start having that individualism. And then you start moving into neighborhoods, and let's talk about, integration, and how it's kind of hard to find community when you're around those other cultures who may not understand you or look at you a certain way. So you lose that sense of community. And then here comes social media, right? And then social media, it's all about, like you said, with the algorithm, the squeaky wheel makes the most noise. So you start seeing all this, and then, we get back into the whole subconscious mindset of seeing things and thinking, oh, well, this is why I don't do that. This is why I don't associate with this people. This is why I don't associate with them. Not realizing there's a whole subset of community of healthy people who are doing things, who are there to support you, there to encourage you, there to push you, but you don't see that. Yeah. So when it comes to, and I think you said maintaining healthy community, I think what we have to do is first have the intention to create healthy community, because it has to be very purposeful. Right. And by purposeful, it's about, making that choice, number one, to say, this is what I'm going to do. Right. And then with that creation, it's being able to push through the labels, push through the hurdles, push through, the false perceptions, and then make a purposeful decision to pull in those people and make connections with the people who are aligned with you. Because if we just leave it to just happenstance, you're going to end up with people around you who attach to you in unhealthy ways. They see something that you have, they want it, or they're toxic and they pull from you, or they're manipulators, controllers, takers, whatever. So you have to be very intentional setting boundaries with those people who you don't need, but then creating connections with people who are aligned. And it's that whole thing of creating connections where we have a lot of broken ways that's not happening.
Yeah. I think one of the things you said that the underlying theme is intention, and I think Horace said the same thing. We have to be intentional. I think the whole point about creating a better community so that we have healthy relationships and healthy families, healthy marriages, overall is being intentional. I mean, my word for the year a couple years ago was intentional relationships, and I broke that down into two different things. One, intentional relationships total overall, but being intentional. Period. Because I think that with being intentional meant I needed to be present and in the moment. That means I needed to put off distractions. I think we're easily easily distracted by everything. Phones, folks can't drive for the phone. You can't walk for the phone. You can't function without your phone or different things. So I think that when it comes to creating these communities and how we fix dealing with collective trauma and collective, grief and all of these things is, first of all, we have to be intentional about how we care for each other as a community. Like at the end of the day, we have to stop fighting each other. And I'm not talking about black on black crime. That's a narrative created by white people. Because statistically show that white people actually kill more white people than black people kill black people. But I'm talking about generally caring about each other, like really having passion. And I love how Black people just came behind Auntie this week with the Oscars. First of all, I don't even know why we're still watching the Oscars. I don't even say that. But the way Black people was like, I know they did not play in Auntie Angela's face like that. Mm-hmm. I think that same outrage, that same passion and love that we have for that type of injustice is what we need. And I think that for me, and looking at the Marvel movies, in particular Black Panther, and how Ryan Coogler wrote everything, that is healthy community to me, and how they provide and support each other, even among the different tribes. They still come together and find common ground and provide that support. That is what I feel like we need to be doing more of, is finding ways to be intentionally supportive. And I don't care, like you said, baby. So you say healing happens in baby steps. Baby, that's a mouthful, because that's the truth. And I think that we're looking for giant leaps when maybe what we need is small intentional steps that people can digest, because the reality is, especially this generation, you can't give them too much at all at once, because they don't understand control or discipline. It's wild and all outside, and I want it all right now, and it's just chaos, rather than, okay, let's give it to you in bite-sized pieces, and that you can digest, and let's make it work. Go ahead, Horace.
Well, I want to talk about programming. I'm gonna stick right here for a second. Years ago, if I say, no, I can't say it on that. Just say Bill Johnson, from BET. Let me tell you about greed and how it works. When he decided to sell BET, you had a collective group of Negroes that was going to buy it from him. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if y'all remember that for a period of that we actually had on BET. Remember, you had the BET News. You had a lot of Black shows for a period of time, and we actually was good for a while.
Yeah.
And then he sold it. Could have sold it to some Negroes, but just for that little couple extra million, he sold the Viacom. Mm-hmm. He sold the Viacom, and I won't say what I want to say about Viacom, but they have a history of programming and subconsciously putting bad images in front of us. So right now, BET sale is going again, and right now you have Byron
Tyler Perry and
Tyler Perry.
Listen, and Diddy
and Byron Allen.
So those three.
Yes, and I'm hoping.
Give me Byron Allen. Yes, give me Byron Allen.
Yeah, but people don't understand that, because see, we'll take something like Diddy and celebrate him getting it, right? And then you look at Tyler. I have nothing but respect for Tyler as a creator. However, as far as Black advancement and being a little pro-Black, I would question the material. I would question the stuff that's
with Byron Allen.
Yeah, so I'm going somewhere with that. So I would question what would be on there, because we have to be mindful of that. We cheer on Diddy, but Diddy,
Jeff ain't said nothing yet about that in the comments. I'm trying some type of way about Tyler.
Well, I've always said about Black finance. We have, I said it before, we have enough Black wealth that we should have something established for ourselves.
I agree. I agree.
With the possibilities of having BET, you have a platform, because just like in war, you can't communicate, you can't win no war. So if we can get BET and I can get a Byron Allen, who I know has some common sense, then you have a platform that can bring some attention and kind of deprogram us. And the reason I'm going with that, to you guys work in the field every day. A lot of us, and I'm speaking on behalf of a lot of men, before I got to this brilliant part of my life, we learn how to process and move on. We don't have the luxury. Until for a long time, all I knew was wake up, work, take care of my family, the world beat my ass. But I don't got time to sit down on the couch and talk about my feelings. And I didn't want to. But one day, somebody I trusted finally got in my ear, and they showed me where I've been carrying around stuff for all my life, not even realizing. And that's the biggest thing. We can be attentive, but we have to get enough attention to show people you're carrying around stuff from your childhood. You're carrying around stuff from high school. You didn't make the football team. Your mama left you for summer camp. Like, it's so much. And I think each person needs to understand it. I know with, we just did a show on survivor's remorse. I've been battling with that, you know, but a lot of us as men and women, we don't know the terminologies to even understand what we're feeling. Emotional intelligence. Most men, we ain't touching that until we in our late 30s, maybe 40. Emotional intelligence, girl, you ain't gonna make.
I'm working on that right now. I got some. I'm literally writing a book about that right now.
Rejection, abandonment, trauma. That's a new word to a lot of people. But listen, I used to brag about I never had a breakup, never had a bad relationship. I would leave them and not realizing it was saying more about me.
Yeah.
But how many people are transparent enough or even in a space to understand or want to unpack and say, you know what? I need to find out the dynamics of me inside and out.
Yes.
Hopefully.
But I think that part of that, Tootie, has to do with people creating a safe space so that you all can do that. You know what I mean? I think that, again, when you talk about programming, a lot of in our community, and I'm specifically talking about growing up in Raw Vera.
The best.
It's not Riviera, it's Raw Vera. Okay. Growing up in the Raw. It Raw. Just take it from that. Okay. It was all about, as a man, you're gonna be hard. You better not let nobody see you cry. What? Boy, you get punched in the jaw.
We pit bulls.
Ain't lying. And I'm being real honest with you, but I think that that's toxic masculinity. That's the things that are taught to these people. And Jeff has even talked about some of the things that he was taught as a man growing up. And I think that as a young man growing up, and I think that that is the program that we also have to reverse, because that's another level that's also constantly promoted about Black men in particular on TV, is that you know, if you cry, if you show a soft side to you, you're effeminate, that you're not masculine enough. And we touched on that in the last episode. But I think that, you know, or there's something wrong with you, you know, or we said all of these very hurtful, terrible things. But I think that, again, not creating that space for you all to unpack how you feel about that. I know somebody like that had a school, and one of the things that they were administrative school, and they were like, we create a safe space for our children to fail. We create a safe space for them to understand rejection and how to deal with that. Why? Because if we don't, the world will, and they're not going to respond the right way. So we need to guide them in a way to be able to know how to respond to that. And I think that if we start creating that ourselves and what that looks like, and again, that dynamic is different, but just be able to have that space where you can come home and not feel like you ain't got time to unpack your day. Because just like that woman got time to unpack her day, why can't that man unpack his day? It's reciprocal. A relationship should be symbiotic and reciprocal. It's the same. I don't care if it's an intimate relationship or you best friends or what have you. You should be able to unwind and unpack. When y'all have guys' night out, I don't care if he's around smoking cigars, shooting pool, or whatever, you should be able to unpack what you're going through. Because if that's not your safe space, you need a new circle of people.
Absolutely.
That's community.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the phrase safe space, safe space needs to be just so important for children, for women, for men, because you need to be able to feel safe. And people don't realize that a lot of what they're feeling, like you don't feel safe. So you have these walls up, you have this distrust, you have sorry, this distance between you and others because you were never ever given that safe space. You don't even know what a safe space is.
Yes.
And what I've seen is some people have because they've never experienced that safe space, when they do get that safe space, they don't know how to function in it. So they self-sabotage it. And a lot of times that does happen, like in relationships or maybe with some friendships, they're called boring, or there's not a whole lot going on, or they're too nice, or she's so sweet, or they're an amazing person. They're not for me. No, they absolutely are for you. And now you have to learn how to function in safety.
Yeah, because if it's foreign to you, you don't know how to appreciate it, let alone be in it. So now you're gonna push back and reject it because now you don't know what to do with this. Like, this is too good to be true. I don't feel. You could very well feel unsafe in a safe space. Yep. Because you think somebody tricking you or somebody trying to work a route on you, even though you know better. You know that person ain't into that, but somewhere in your mind or somewhere on social media, somebody told you, don't trust that, don't eat your, sleep with one eye open, don't eat her food, don't do this. Like, you being ridiculous.
Don't eat spaghetti. But listen,
right.
Listen, I ain't eating that spaghetti still. Listen, so let me give you some insight. I grew up, listen, my daddy, you know how my daddy's scenario was. My daddy, I was a Negro off the streets, dapped me up. And when we did have a conversation, all he wanted to know was I hunching yet, right? So between my granddad, my stepdad, my granddad and my dad, I never had them hug. I never got a hug from them in my whole life. I never had them one time say, I love you. My dad said, I love you, but I never got it in my life. And then once I got older, to get my granddad's story, he left home at 12 and from Georgia, took a truck down here, When I met his mama, I was like, oh, hell, she hell. Like, my grandma was hell. That's a whole other story. And then it translated, he was an excellent provider, right? But as far as that father figure, that was all. So if we don't get taught nothing, we observe what we see.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what it was. Was he abused? He was abusive. So what happened to benefit me was the trauma of I gave my kids what I desire for myself. Yeah. Right. But I always tell people that I was in a relationship one time that I hated him so much that I didn't even know subconsciously I became him.
Wow.
I did.
But I think that people desire what they saw. We see it in Ringside all the time, these conversations about what people wanted from their previous generations, what their grandparents had. But you have to understand the dynamics of the time. It ain't been that long since women could have a bank account without a man having to co-sign and different things. They were in relationships long-term out of circumstance, not because they loved each other or it was the best situation. In this example, like Horace is telling you, that's really sad and unfortunate. They were great providers. Let's not get it twisted.
Oh, man.
Black men, especially back in the day, did what was necessary to provide for their family. If they had to work 2, 3, 50, 11 million jobs, they were gonna make sure that money came home. And mama and grandmama, they made that money stretch. They did what they had to do to be homemakers and make it work. But there were a lot of different dynamics that were involved in that, and so it was either we working all the time to make ends meet, that there was no room for affection, and when you got it, it was just they were drinking the sorrows away, and then they get mad all over again. And so because I can't take it out on who I really want to take it out on, I'm coming home and take it out over here. You know what I'm saying? And that's what used to happen. So when we start talking about programming and reversing what that looks like in relationships and again, collective grief and collective trauma, I started off talking about the Eric Garners and that kind of stuff. But what about the injustice that we face every day on the job? That's collective trauma, because we know full well, again, we all watched it. We all saw that ain't no way in the world Jamie Lee Curtis should have got it over that Asian chick. How? Let's be real. You know what I'm saying? this is the stuff that we see all the time. This is the water cooler conversations that you think Black people ain't been dealing with this all the time. Like, hello, Asian community. This is what a snub is like. This is what Black folks been getting all the time. When you know full well, Emma Jean should have got that promotion.
Yeah.
But they gave it to Rachel Ray over here, and now Emma Jean got to give a master class to Rachel Ray. And you know, and this is what we've been experiencing all the time on the job, all the time. And what did my man tell Kerry Washington in Scandal? You can say what you want. My man said, what you got to do, you got to be twice as good and still get half as much. That's the reality. And so that's constant grief, because when one of us lose on the job, it's like we all lost on that job, because, oh, she get a promotion, I can get a promotion too. So if she don't get promoted, I'm going to be stuck here forever too. Ain't no growth opportunity. So what I got to do? So it's constant. It's just like what was going on with the PPP loans. Listen, Black people, it was like, y'all, are you serious? Because when one of y'all going to prison for PPP loan fraud, Lord, that's going to set the rest of us back, because they're going to look at all of us. But you know what I mean? It's not, the rules are not the same for us. And so when we talk about collective grief, collective trauma, and how that affects us as a community, and coming home and having conversations and dealing with this, we ain't even got into how it's affected interracial relationships, because that's your choice. That's another conversation on you. That's a personal choice to get into that and bring that home, because now you really got to look at the other side of the table at home. And that's another dynamic that you got to add to that as well. So I think that when we start talking about, you know, action steps and how we can fix all this and change that, I think that it starts with being intentional, but I think we need it in bite-sized pieces that this generation can understand and grasp and be able to pass on and keep it going. Because that old back in the day of sitting around listening to Big Mama them and Granddaddy them tell stories, we don't do that no more.
No,
that's bad. But we need, and that's the stuff we need, though. We need to hear those stories. We need to, whether it's to learn, like Horace did, learn from it and learn what not to do. But then you got to compound that with some type of counseling to figure out how to not fall into that same trap by trying to not become that person. He subconsciously became that person, but just a different version of it. You know what I mean? So it's just kind of like there's an evolution, but how do we evolve in the right way or in a better way? You know what I mean? I think that that's where we have to start having more conversations. And this is the stuff that, you know, this is the good stuff. These are the conversations. It's got to start somewhere with us. I mean, String has a point. Is the no more Mr. Nice Guy thing even exist in our community? Is there such things as a nice guy in our community? I think that, you know, nice guys do get a bad rep. The nice guys finish last thing. I think that, you know, we start talking about the nerdy guy that made it. Now everybody like, oh, okay, well, he was a nerd in school, but now you want to be in his face. Okay.
Listen, stop it. Listen, I'm the last guy left, but y'all messed it up. Look how you Sierra. Look at Sierra. I'm gonna tell you. Look at Sierra. Got a
Russ knew
man.
what he was marrying.
Listen, I'm sick of y'all that been taking up for this girl. She is showing her ass more.
Who's been taking up for? Not me.
Oh, she was.
Russ knew who he married.
Listen,
Russ wanted a freak and got it.
That's what's making it rough on the nice guy, because this man been getting called a simp and everything under the sun. And I think, I'm sorry, people, call me judgmental. Sierra, these people, you girl, get yourself. Listen, Savannah James, be like Savannah James. Tell Savannah James over there raising them cheering. She look classy and regal. And I think Sierra really missing Future, because you know, once you get that toxic dude, because I'm just sorry. Y'all need to go hand it that. She's embarrassed.
I don't understand how she come out the house like that
all the time.
I don't know, but Russ was married.
She done got them kids out there, man. Now he can't go nowhere because he'll be paying child support out the yin yang. Listen, that's why nice guys is tired. Look how y'all do somebody like a Russell Wilson. That boy out there ministering in prison, that is Jesus' nephew. And listen, ain't no nice guy gonna talk. Future ain't never single. Players, that nice guy still don't work.
How many kids Future got? Like 9?
And 10 tomorrow. All of them.
A lot.
He up there with what's his name? Nick Cannon?
Toxic is good, apparently.
I don't know. I think part of it is, I think that you're raising a point though, because I think we have to get to a point where we stop looking at celebrities and thinking that they're the blueprint, because they're not. They're not the blueprint. And I think that especially this generation that's easily impressed by things. I was listening to Jill Scott the other day, and she was like, money don't impress me. I'm not impressed by money. I'm not impressed by, all this kind of stuff. Like, I want your time. I want something else other than that, because at the end of the day, I can provide. I got my own money. I can buy my own flowers. I can take myself to dinner. But I think that we do have a very impressionable, like a lot of people on social media are very impressionable. They want their so many minutes of fame, and they'll tell you the minute I'm a content creator, and then every part of their life is about content creation. That's a lie. Not now. Like, there needs to be a part of your life that you're a regular person, that everything doesn't have to be curated for somebody else to comment on, enjoy, and it's entertainment, because now we're falling into that trap of shut up and dribble. You're just entertainment, and we're more than that as a community. Until we get to that point where we realize we're more than that, we're more than entertainment, but we're a community of people that have real feelings, and we're trying to leave a legacy, something behind, because them people didn't march across Selma, and folks didn't die, didn't get lynched, shot, beaten, murdered, lied on by white folks, and lynched, and all this other kind of stuff, for us to be over here being somebody's little piece of entertainment all the time.
I'm taking y'all to trial. I'm taking y'all to trial. I'm going on trial. I want to say something. I'm going to have this show. It's controversial. I don't care. Give me the hate mail. In any society, the decline of the woman impacts the whole culture. So when I got the city girl trend and took off, you got her over there with this old ass man.
I didn't even know what that was till you said. I was like, city girl, I didn't know who that was.
And she the side chick, and whole culture is really tore up our whole community. We celebrating that whole culture. I'm gonna actually start a trial. I want to put the city girls and everybody on trial, because that's what's affecting us. Listen, Big Daddy and Grandpa, yeah, he had a little outside child and he messed up and all that. But one thing about the past, Big Mama kept the house together. Nowadays, ain't
always
nobody
stay home, Big Mama.
Ain't nobody in the house. Cheering, raising themselves. That's what we dealing with.
Yeah, it is social media and television and video games, and I think that's the challenge. Like, how do we create that community though? How do we bring back? Because I feel like people are like, oh, that's old fashioned. We can use a little old fashioned right now. I mean, we can really use an old fashioned, and I think that honestly, I do think that is, people put a lot on the women and say women control relationships. I think that it starts with men too. I think if men change their standards in a little bit too, and start demanding more, women will get in line too. And I'm gonna probably get canceled for saying that, but it's the reality of it all too, because we complain about, oh, it's not enough men in the dating pool. I just turned 40, and I'm on the other side of 45, and I guarantee told you, it's a whole lot of toxic, dirty urine out there, and it's not desirable. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, I don't care, and it's not even about, and it's in every income bracket. So at the end of the day, I think that it's a combination of both of us. We all have to step our game up and step up our standards. But it's like, how do we combat all of the negative programming that's in front, that's constantly being spoon-fed, and it's kind of like we're drowning in it. You know what I mean? To sift through it, to find it.
And it's like it's a give and take when it comes down to it. I mean, we can all point the finger at each other for some reason. We can all find some reason there and everything. But once everyone takes a step back to say, and I know this is like far reaching, I don't know, it's my ultimate prayer. What can I do to help this situation? If everyone were to collectively say that, then we take accountability on ourselves. But of course, that can't be done.
She said
until each person as an individual first starts showing up as an individual, showing up as your authentic self. Because, you know, when it comes to social media, and, you know, just to just piggyback off of what Jay said about us men celebrate it when we as men stop buying it. I mean, let's be real. It is not just about men. It's just about, if there's something out there that can help me get my 15 minutes of fame, that can help me get validated, that can help me get noticed, that can help me get celebrated, that I'm gonna dig into. Forget the fact that this is not who I truly am. Forget the fact that I've never known who I am. I'm just going to paint the outside and try to show up and get that visibility. And when we talk about celebrities, that's what a lot of them do, because that's the nature of their profession. So I don't even really say too much about what people are doing when they're in front of the cameras and getting those likes and getting talked about, whatever. They're getting their fame. They're making their bread off of that. You know, that's not the average person. But when it comes to the average person, we are unable to show up authentically. And so you don't have that authentic show up of yourself. So you don't have those authentic relationships. You don't have those authentic communities. And with that, a lot of that inauthenticity is tied to trauma, because when you think about like the things that some children go through, especially in a Black community, a lot of times you're not allowed to be yourself. You got to be what your mama told you to be. You got to be what your daddy told you to be. You got to be what your auntie told you to be. Don't be doing that. Don't be saying that. Don't be wearing that. Don't be hanging with those friends. Don't be doing that stuff, even though there's nothing wrong with it. And you have to pretend to be something else. And I just want to also, with what Horace said about, you know, how he had a member of his family who was trying not to be him, but he became them. For me, I didn't have a good relationship with my mother. Before she died, we were estranged. I was trying so hard not to be her that I never became my own person. I became the extreme opposite of her. And with that, when she died, and luckily I was within a coaching community that could support me, I pretty much had a mini identity crisis, because I'm like, there's no one I could subconsciously not be like. So who am I? But with that, because, you know, I viewed her as someone who had some toxic traits. I was the nice girl. I was a people pleaser. I was the one who tried to create the peace. So for me, I was inauthentic in my own little world without trying to be toxic to others. I was toxic to myself. So then I'm showing up inauthentic as the nice girl, dealing with the inauthentic people who are trying to get validated, because, you know, they got to show up and be the person that their daddy told them to be, which was pretty much an asshole, you know. And, you know, we're interacting like that. So a lot of people don't even know where to start with saying, you know what, who am I?
And just think about how that impacted every relationship you had. I mean, just unpack what Paula just said, and think about how that affected every relationship she had, because she couldn't be her authentic self because she didn't know who that was. She didn't show up in the way that she needed to, or probably should have, in her relationships. And how many of us do that? Because she said the cuss word accountability, and the other cuss word is self-reflection, because we don't want to look in that mirror. But that's the hard work that we got to do if we want to build healthy relationships and be about building community. Horace?
Point of order.
You know,
I've been waiting to say that for 2 weeks. Point of order.
I can't stand you.
Listen. So I want to say this. You are in a society that everything's fake. I see people being portraying, listen, we're surrounded by idiots. And I want women to really focus on this. When Jodeci came out, I remember being at Suncoast, everybody was dressing like Negroes from Jodeci. I remember when Boys and Men came out. Remember everybody walking around with canes and little shirts and all that, because that's what women were in. Don't know why at one point women were in the short dudes. We couldn't adjust our height, but short dudes had their run too. The point is, women dictate what goes on. So whatever y'all into, we gonna be, because we want you. Paula, you know the thing you do when you go, let's say, right to left with the left half? All right? See that point right there.
Just do it?
Yeah. So if I'm into you, and I know you date a certain kind of guy, guess what that guy's gonna do?
What's that?
he's going to try to trend towards what you're into. So I'm saying right now, everybody want to be Future. You know why? Because the chicks are responding. Even though y'all say y'all don't want toxic, it seems to be on the menu right now. So not for the older women, but I'm saying whatever you guys
for grown and sexy women, like real people age.
Wait a minute, remember the dread era? I dated a girl one time said she only liked guys that got dread. You know what I did? I got them grew some dreads. We gonna do what y'all dictate, so y'all have more power.
But to that point, too, nowadays y'all ain't even got to do a whole lot because they got man weaves now. You can get a wig, and you can transform this. I mean, men. I mean, men getting plastic surgery. What's the rapper that had the surgery on the app? I'm gonna get into it in the next conversation. I mean, men are doing different things. They got the weave where they put literally gluing on hair and getting that fade right. I mean, there's no reason why.
Listen. You ain't got to do nothing but have $2 and 2 teeth right now. And you can get you a
That is true.
That's true. I'm telling you. You don't need much out here.
Here's the deal, though, with that. So with what you said about, Future, he shows up, he's getting women, and he has women, that he pulls in like, him, Nick Cannon, it doesn't matter. Be toxic, pulling women. And that does happen. But the person that's viewing that has to be able to view it to say, yeah, he's pulling in women, but do I want those women? Do I want those problems? Do I really want that life? And it's like you have to dare to be different and see things for what they truly are. And then recognize that when you are standing in a different light and you want quality, it's going to require you to show up differently, and you're going to have different experiences. And because majority of people around you aren't quality, you're going to have less interactions, but that makes it more quality. And let's think about, quality versus quantity. You can get things cheap. You can get a lot of it, or you can get those 1 or 2 things where you pay that money and it's more valuable. And people have to start looking at experiences, their own experiences or experiences of other people like that. But once again, that gets down into being authentic, with knowing who you are, with knowing what you want. Do you really want that attractive woman who's attracted to toxic, or do you want that woman who's going to value you for the characteristics you have from within that could stand the test of time? Yeah. And when you ask those questions, like I hear so many men sometimes, and some women, but I hear a lot of men say, oh, there's so many options out here. I'm like, where? What standards are you using to say you have options? What, just by the way they look? Then you have zero standards. They're ground level, and you're going to get everything that you deserve because everything is going to come at you. So you have to be able to raise your standards, be that person that's okay with living that different life, being single for a while, only different, dealing with authentic and valuable people, and be okay. So when you do see that dude that's pulling in 10, 20 women, you're like, best of luck for him, because 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now, guess what? He's got some things that he's going to be working through. So,
well, I think part of that is they was listening to that Luke James song talking about I got options with Rick Ross. So that messed them up right there, but it is my joint. That's a bad song. But I'm going to answer this question real quick from String. String, here's the answer. The long and short answer, the short answer, and it's going to be the long and short answer. They're going to bad. They're going to bad. A man, nowadays, dudes tell you they can bad. They can get it, because at the end of the day, it's enough low-hanging fruit out here that'll give it away. Or they can that, or only cheap, or buy them some food or whatever, and they're gonna buy it. Homosexuals. It's too easy out there. There you go. It's too easy out here. Like real talk, that's the challenge. Like honestly, if you're looking for a person of substance, Paula just told you. So honestly, you can say, I want you to have a master's degree, or I want you to have ambition. Forget it. Like I was talking to my mom today, and we were like, talking about the job market. And she was like, yeah, these days you ain't even got to have a college degree. Some of these companies care more about your work experience. So if you got the experience rather than the job, than the degree, you don't need the degree. So it's the same thing. Who cares about a degree? Because who cares about that? Who cares about that. The standard level, that's the problem that we're having in our community in particular, trying to change the narrative, is the standards are so low, they darn near to the ground. And that's the challenge. You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, you know, what they want is,
don't put that on there. Because listen, I had went through a period of time. I was out here dating, and I've now just put myself on the bench. When I told women that I was taking them on to be celibate, you should have seen the anger that came out. These heifers, boy, they did not understand. They was listen. It really, fellas, that worked too. Tell them you celibate.
Can you manage that? How long you gonna go down that road?
I did it before.
Yeah, but for how long?
I don't know. It's between me and the Lord.
Can you hang? I'm just
saying. Yeah, but point is, so don't put it all on men, because when you say that, I've had women just like, it works, fellas. They show you,
because it's a challenge. Can I be honest? It's a challenge because and it's rare, because let's be real. When you talk about celibacy, you don't really hear too many men go down that road. That's more something that women would like. A woman, it ain't nothing for a woman to say, I'm taking a vow of celibacy. But for a man to say that, because that means, you know, that's what that's telling a woman without you directly saying to her is that you have discipline and control, and that you can temper yourself. That's attractive.
I'm more than a piece of meat.
Absolutely.
I'm tired of it.
But how long did you put yourself out there as a piece of meat?
You know, I went 6 months one time.
No. I mean, how long did you put yourself out there as a piece of meat?
I didn't know, but listen, I didn't. But I'm saying, you listen, for men. So Paula say that it's not a lot. It actually is. I meet a lot of. The only bad thing about it, I meet so many women that have just been divorced or hurt. Like I run into them like a hospital. But I actually, when the women say, "Hey, they're looking for sex," them be the ones that actually do.
I need to hear from Jeff on this. I need to hear from Jeff on this.
That works for me. Jeff works for Jeff.
Jeff is not finna take nobody.
My name is
Jeff
not.
Is celibacy together?
I don't date like that because I don't want my name, you know, being from where I'm from. Listen, all the time you talk to one person and then, girl, forever for a whole year. Oh, yeah, you know, that's the boy that he was talking to Paula. And every damn time I'm gonna be attached to that. And then if I date somebody else, now I'm a hoe. Oh,
yeah.
He was used.
Yeah. Stream said, but that vow of celibacy is counter to y'all nature.
It is, but you don't want to bless everybody. I say that on the show all the time. Some of these people don't deserve these orgasms.
But I do. Okay. Yeah. But to that point, I do think that the same messaging that women have, I think that men should have it too. Like, you have to see yourself and your body and who you are as a person as a blessing. Like you have something to offer that, you know, it's valuable. And so at what point do you draw a line and say, okay, what else are you offering? Because I can do it for me. You know what I mean? Like we got the roles. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. And I think there needs to be a line drawn, because you get some people who are like, I'm going to take a vow of celibacy because they just don't want to deal with the opposite sex. Yeah. And that's not what it's for. It's really to take that opportunity to spend time with yourself, to be committed to yourself. Because my thing is, what I say to people, take this time, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, however long you need to go. And you're using that time to be committed to yourself, because you can't commit to someone else, can't commit to a relationship, can't commit to all these other things if you can't even commit to your own well-being.
I agree.
And that's what it should be about. It should be about you taking your opportunity to heal, to figure out what you want, figure out what your true standards are. What are your values? What are your deal breakers? Learn how to set some boundaries. Reflect on the mistakes you made and learn the lessons so you don't start doing the wrong things again, so that when you step back out, you're making better decisions, but not, oh, I'm going to take this act of celibacy because all men cheat and I just don't want to deal with men. Then you jump back out there and you deal with the same men that you were dealing with before because you never learned your lessons.
Yeah, because when you hit them Mario coins, you're both crazy. Fellas, if you blessed enough to hit that button inside there, know what's coming with that. It's a whole y'all together. You was.
Did y'all see the video this week with the lady when she was telling the dude, call your mama, change your address, we together, you stay here now?
Yeah.
I was like, boy, the dudes on Twitter was like, that's what happened when you put it down real good.
Sure
I mean, the man was juicing that man. They don't even know that man. They was juicing him up, but he was sitting there like, what in the world is going on? By the end of the video, he done got back in the bed like this, and I'm like, Lord have mercy.
You bathe from
like, that's it. A string is I'm convinced string is trolling tonight. Call me Superman and be cooperative. Will you marry me? You know what? I love you, but you're not letting me right now. You really pro man tonight, and I'm okay with that. It's okay. But as we close the show tonight, it was a great conversation, great show, great energy. But I think that we made a lot of great points about what it is to create community. And again, it's all about controlling the narrative, what we look like, and how we close that gap between what's out there and what we want to create. Because at the end of the day, you can only consume so much negative. You can only consume so much grief and loss and trauma over and over and over again before it seeps into your home. And then that seeps into your relationship and how you interact with other people. You know what? You just got blacker. Yes, we blackity black, we extra black this season. But but I do think that, I mean, that's a point. I mean, it's at what point do we say we got to draw the line and come up with solutions? Because we can't control situations and circumstances. We can't control a lot of what's happening out there. We ain't controlling the Oscars and how they voting. We ain't controlling police brutality and what's going on in these police departments and with these police budgets. We ain't controlling a lot, like on the job and who getting promoted, who not getting promoted, who getting hired. We're not making those decisions, right? Even if we are in those rooms, we still not the decision maker. Like, let's be real. So what can we control? We can control our response. We can control.
Oh, Lord.
How do we have conversation around what we do to turn this thing around in our favor? Like, how do we help our communities? How do we keep the Black family structure solid? How do we keep each other together? By creating these spaces and then providing people with resources and encouraging people to use those resources, because you got a lot of free resources out there and they're credible. Like Taraji P. Henson got the Boris Henson Foundation, a lot of free mental health services, therapy for Black men, especially, to take advantage of. Finding a therapist is not easy to do. It's a relationship, and this is somebody you're trusting with your well-being. And finding somebody that you gel with very well, that you can be vulnerable with, that's not going to compromise you, that's not going to make you feel some type of way, that's not going to, really tear you down, but really help you get to a point where you build yourself up. Because therapists don't fix you. They just lead you down a road to help you fix yourself and recognize certain things and equip you with solutions, especially if they're solution focused as a therapist, to help you get to where you need to in the short and long run. So I think that having these conversations, creating spaces, but also encouraging our community to take advantage of the resources that are out there, because there are a lot of free resources out there for mental health and mental wellness, but taking advantage of that, a lot of that matters. So I'm going to go to everybody for closing remarks. Paula.
Well, I just want to say, you brought up the whole thing about the gap. And one thing that I always teach is this, and this is something that's done on an individual level because it always starts with us. You've got to figure out what you want your future to look like. Then you've got to figure out how you need to show up in that future. Then once you figure out what your future looks like and who you need to be, you have to work to become that person. And that is the only way to close that gap. It's not about what other people are doing. It's not about what someone else said to you. It's not about what he's doing, she's doing. It's about what are you going to do despite what others are doing? Because in order to live differently, you have to live differently, and you can't wait. You have to do it now, and you do it now by closing your own gap. So I am going to challenge everyone who's listening to take some time, figure out where their point A is, which is right now, where their point B is, which is where you want to be, and figure out what you need to do to walk those steps, and then start showing up as that person tomorrow. I'll give you tonight to rest, but start showing up as that person tomorrow.
That's good. That's good. Tootie?
Well, I want to piggyback on Paula with that. Listen, people, there's a lot of people in this world trying to put on these fake facades. You're going to burn yourself out. You can only be somebody else for so long.
Yeah.
So a lot of you are portraying the person I actually am. And I'll tell you, it's overrated. I've spent many years in the music industry. I've toured the world. And I tell you what, I treasure this moment I have now. Peace and just being my 100% authentic self is more rewarding than you can ever imagine. Yeah. And keeping it real with yourself starts every morning. So in the morning, go look in the mirror and just listen, I even had to do that. Have a real conversation with yourself, straighten yourself out. And for the dude that gets up every morning and puts on 5 fake chains, you are better than that. That's not for you. All right. Just be you, bro, because there's a top for every pot. Last off, I want to give rest in peace wishes to Bobby Caldwell, who is a iconic singer. I met him in Vegas a long time ago and acted a fool when I found out he was white. And we laughed hysterically. And every year we would message each other and I would remind him and say, hey, you know you're white, right? And he was cool as heck. I didn't know he was ill, but or just a genuine guy who made timeless music. So prayers for his family, and hopefully we can continue to enjoy his legacy. Rest on.
Absolutely.
Y'all, there's no better way to end the show. So we thank y'all for tuning in. 2 weeks, we coming back, and we're going to talk about body modification. And we talked about it a while ago, but we're going to really talk about it as it relates to affecting y'all relationships. And it's not just women getting their body modified. So we're going to talk about how it started off as a culture for us as a culture, and Black folks culturally, taking it back to Africa, to the motherland, to what it is now and how it's affecting our relationships. Because are you really with the person you think you with? And you coming home and it's like, I'm gonna get you sucking. They taking off whole body parts and stuff and such. So y'all gonna join us in 2 weeks. We get into body modification. So see y'all next time. Thank y'all for tuning in. We appreciate y'all so much. Y'all amazing. The best audience ever. See y'all in 2 weeks.
BDLs. Give them BDLs.